Howdy, I'm Lee Wilson, and this is TGO Wyoming, on the move. And today we're going to talk about knowing your town, knowing your city, and being aware of what's going on, and knowing how to feel it out and tell what the vibe of the city is. So I live in Casper, Wyoming, and it's a relatively small city. It's about 60 to 65,000 people, maybe 70 to 73,000 people if you count Evansville and Mills, which are two adjacent townships. I mean, they kind of run into each other. So realistically, Casper is pretty small, and it makes it pretty easy to get to know, to feel the vibe. So why is this important? Well, every city, every town has its good spots and its bad spots. It's just a fact of life. So you need to be aware of what's going on and where you can be and when you're going to be in an elevated danger situation. So Casper has a couple of, bad spots, and they're not really awful in the grand scheme of things. However, they're places you might want to avoid after dark, walking around. But, the chances of getting carjacked or something like that are relatively low. But it's still good to know the vibe, know where these places are, know where your high crime rate area is. And this is especially important if you're moving to a new city, is to get a good feel for it. Fortunately, there are a lot of resources available to you, such as the internet and your local PD and local sheriff's department. So you can kind of get an idea of where the bad neighborhoods are, or the high crime rate areas are. And with the internet, you can just check, crime reports. You can find resources on, as like basically where the arrests are happening. You can look at the police blotter, and you can always go, put boots to pavement and go talk to somebody at the PD or the sheriff's department. And they're most of the time very willing to give you an idea of which areas are problem areas. The other thing to do is drive around, go cruising. I mean, we all used to cruise, I'm sure, when we were, younger. When you're 18, 19, you've got your license, and that's all there is to do. I mean, you just went and drove for fun, and you observed what was going on. Hopefully you observed what was going on. And as we get older, we tend to not cruise as much because, well, we're paying for gasoline and insurance, and time is money. So it's not something you just go out and do for fun too much. But it's an important thing. Take a drive around your city and go explore a new neighborhood. Pick a new area to drive around and build yourself a mental map. Not only are you going to be better off knowing how to navigate your city and where you live, but you're going to get an idea of how it feels. Look at people's houses. Are the yards kept up? What kind of cars are people driving? Who's hanging around outside? You can get a pretty good idea of the more affluent parts of town, the more destitute parts of town, and which parts of town you just really shouldn't be in. So, nothing beats getting out there and actually looking around and observing. So I like to do that in town. I know that there are certain places that are not great, and there are also places that have bad reputations that really aren't that bad. A lot of people think that North Casper is a bad area of town. You know what? It ain't bad. It's really just kind of, it's a little less affluent, but it's not a dangerous part of town. Of course, then we have Felony Flats, which is south of where I live. And yeah, there's some crummy individuals living in Felony Flats. It's fairly deserving of its name. And then you have areas that look like they should be okay, but the crime blotters will tell you otherwise. There was a recent study done showing where the most crime in Casper was, and one of those places was a subdivision called Paradise Valley. Aptly named, right? Paradise Valley ends up being one of the most dangerous places in town. Fortunately, that's quite a ways away from me. However, about 6 blocks to the west of my location is an area that has a fairly large meth problem, both in production and usage. Gonna wave a guy around here. I ain't in any hurry, so these are things you need to look at and kind of get a feel for. So, when times are good, you just know your city better. You know what's going on. You have a good feel for it. If times are bad, you know where to avoid. So be familiar. This is good for your situational awareness, and keeping a feel on the pulse of the city. And, as riots and demonstrations and stuff like that become more commonplace in this country, it's a good idea to know where you are and where things are likely to happen. So get out, take a drive, go observe things, make some mental notes. Heck, write these notes down, get a map, plot everything out, jump on Google Maps and look at your city. Even if you're just building a mental map, that's a great thing. A lot of people do not have a solid understanding of the layout of where they live because they don't look at maps. And that's really a good way to build spatial awareness. There's actually a phenomenon called death by GPS, where people so blindly follow their GPS, directions that they end up driving to places and running out of gas and dying of exposure. And it happens apparently out in Death Valley a whole lot. But, GPS gives you a very small spatial relation, right? Because it just shows you a tiny little function, tiny little piece of what you're seeing. If you look at a large map or a paper map, then you can get a spatial awareness. And that's an important thing to have wherever you live, is have spatial awareness. So on that note, thanks again for watching. And as always, don't forget to subscribe for more great videos. And I hope you guys have found this video entertaining and or informative. If you haven't, let me know in the comments below. If you have, let me know in the comments below. I always enjoy hearing from you guys. So as always, stay safe, shoot straight, and I'll see y'all next time.